Hey guys, happy Sunday, happy Easter, however you want to say it. Everybody's a little bit different, but happy Sunday service. More important than anything else right now is letting you guys know that Cody Barton will not be on our episode tonight. It's just going to be me. So we're going to be answering a ton of questions. I have gotten so many questions the last couple of weeks. I think that creative financing is becoming
Hey guys, happy Sunday,
the biggest.
happy Easter.
Hold on a second.
However you want to say it, everybody's a little.
Creative financing is becoming one of the biggest conversations out there right now because of what's going on in the world. Chase just announced that they are going to tighten the ability to get traditional financing. Bank of America is announcing the same thing tomorrow. Banks and lending institutions are changing their ability for you or any one of our customers to get traditional financing and secure mortgages. So when you're trying to buy a house and you can't get a bank to give you a loan, what do you do? Luckily for a guy like us or a guy like me and a company like us is we have houses that we can sell to people with creative financing. Yeah. Hey, Tristan, I was doing a watch party. I was just making sure that Steve Trang's group had it. So it was replaying a little bit. So guys, I want to start out answering questions and getting the flow going. I got, I don't know, on a given day, I probably get 100 to 200 DMs in Instagram saying, help me, help me, help me. I need this, I need that, whatever. I'm used to it. It's been going on for years. Usually I can help you guys for the most part. But the last couple of days has been even more people asking about the mentorship, asking about how I can help them, asking about JV deals. And then I had a handful of people also say, I've never heard of Subject 2 until a week ago. And so it's really challenging to give you guys what I think you want on a weekly basis versus what you really want. So I would love to see questions going up. I want to see what you guys have to say today. I have a whole bunch of stuff that I can talk about, things that are exciting, things that we're working on. But I want to jump in and answer your questions because I don't really know where to start because I'm getting some very basic questions versus some very, very intricate questions. Here we go. This is a great one. How can we determine if the deal is great for sub 2 versus wholesale? Well, you always start with equity. So if there's equity in the deal, then typically it's going to be a wholesale. Same thing with us, where the majority of my lead flow comes from is wholesale. So we do anywhere between 12 to 20 wholesale contracts a month, depending on the type of the time of the year. So we start out with wholesale because it's nice to have transactional income. And then when there's no equity, which a lot of people on this show are going to say, well, yeah, they're going to say yes to this question. My question is, have you ever gotten a lead from being a wholesaler where a seller wants $200,000 for a $200,000 house? Everybody should be raising their hand saying, yes, I have. Well, that's when we know that we divert and we convert that over to a creative deal. It doesn't necessarily mean subject to, it could mean seller finance. It could be a lease option. It could be a land contract. It could be a whole slew of things. But if there's equity, typically, and there's equity and motivation to get out of the house really fast, typically you want to go after wholesale because there's transactional income. If there's lack of motivation and lack of equity, then you go after subject to, okay? Let's talk about land contract on the disposition side. Since you don't like seller finance, when are you doing land contracts? Well, here's the other reason why I don't like I don't like doing seller finance as a disposition model, not only because of the legalities that are involved, because then I am basically the lender. I also don't like selling my real estate. I want to own my real estate. And so when there's a lot of guys in the industry, you'll see them on YouTube, and they primarily dispo through seller finance. The reason why people do seller finance more often than not is because they don't know how to raise private capital, or they don't have money of their own, or they don't understand lease options properly to cover their entry fee. So what it basically comes down to is on a seller finance, people utilize seller finance not because it's the greatest strategy. In fact, it's not the greatest strategy, not even close in my opinion, because seller finance, you are no longer the owner of that property. I've bought it through whatever means. It could be subject to seller finance, essentially the same thing. I could get on a lease option. I could get on a land contract, and then I could turn around and sell it, right? For us, we choose to do primarily lease option and rentals. And the reason for that is because if I do seller finance, I've already sold the property. I've already given and secured the funding for the buyer on the back end. So the buyer owns the property, not me. He has all the tax benefits, not me. The only benefit to seller finance, in my opinion, is that, well, there's probably 3 or 4. If I do seller finance, I can cash flow, which is cool, but I can do that through lease options. I can do that through rentals. So there's really no pro there over anything else. It's more that I have way less management typically with the buyer on the back end. In fact, I'm hands off. I'm basically just the bank. That's one pro. Another pro is that I can sell my note. So now that I'm in that situation, I could go and sell that note on a secondary market and cash out of that position without the buyer or the seller even having to do anything with it. So I love that. But here's the thing is that now you're not a real estate investor, in my opinion. You don't own the real estate. You might be an investor, but you're not an owner of real estate. You don't get the tax benefits. Also, if you're doing seller finance on the back end, Jonathan, guess what has to happen when your buyer defaults? I've had this happen twice. I have a lady named Annabelle that lives in one of my properties. She defaulted. I seller finance to her. What did I have to do? Did I evict her and take 45 days? No, that's what I can do on a lease option. But when I have a seller finance buyer on the back end default, I have to take them through a full foreclosure. I have to foreclose on them. Meanwhile, that entire time I'm foreclosing on them, they are not making payments and I am, right? I'm still responsible for those payments. So I'm not a big fan of seller finance. I want to be a real estate owner. I want to own real estate until the day I die. And seller finance, I've basically already given and secured that financing to the end buyer. So Rafael Campos, that is incorrect. You guys can do lease options in Texas. That is something I hear all the time. That is absolutely incorrect. The correct statement is that you can only do lease options a certain way. You can't do the type of lease options I do, which are I do 5-year lease options. However, you guys can do 3-year lease options up to 3 years. And I can give you guys more information on that. So Rafael, hit me up in the DMs or send me an email and I'll give you information on how to do a lease option properly in Texas. You can do lease options in Texas. Yes, absolutely. Claude, you do know that. Jonathan Castano, you asked some really good questions, man. I appreciate it. That's where I want to know if I'm doing a land contract makes it easier to kick them out over a wrap. Yes, it does make it easier, but let me ask you a question back, Jonathan. Why do you want to do seller financing? What's the benefit to you as the investor? What's the benefit of doing seller finance on the back end? Okay. Gino Pace, me and JP took down our first property with private money. We were going to lease option as an exit strategy. When they put the money up front down, it doesn't go to buy no, absolutely not, Gino. Gino, you're a friend of the show. You're a student of Steve Trang. If you need help walking through that lease option, just let me know. Me and my team would be happy to help you out. By the way, Gino, I appreciate the gifts that you got me. You sent me some amazing gifts this last week. My daughter sleeps with that little teddy bear with the Suns jersey on it every night. So thank you, bro. I really appreciate you a lot. By the way, you guys notice a change in the hat. Today is Masters Sunday, and the Masters got canceled. So, okay, so why wouldn't you? So passive cash flow, I can get passive cash flow from literally every other exit strategy. The down payment, you're only telling me, and I'm going to be a little bit harsh here. I feel like people that do seller financing are lazy. So I feel like they're lazy in the sense that they don't go out and raise private capital, or they don't have a lot of money in their war chest. So they have a challenge doing all the other strategies, which I feel like long-term are a way, way better strategy. So down payment from the seller finance side is cool, but I feel like there's way more legal issues on the seller finance side than not. And the only reason people are doing seller finance, in my opinion, is because they don't have the capital to get into those deals. Correct me if I'm wrong. Please tell me. I'm not giving you like, here's the Bible, here's exactly what I think. I just simply, that's my opinion. And I look at the guys who are doing seller finance and I see it's because they're not well capitalized and they don't know how to find lease option buyers that will bring that down payment, and then you get the cash flow. So where do I get the paperwork? Guys, this is a question I get all the time. I will give you guys a little bit of help on this, but we have had attorney after attorney after attorney go through all of our documents over the last several years. We update these documents all the time. And I'm going to tell you guys a couple of things and why I don't just readily share certain things. It's the same reason why I changed up my voice recordings, and is because I would have people take things that I give for free. Like here I am, Sunday night, 7 o'clock my time. I'm giving you guys something for free. You're not paying for anything to be here. I'm not making any money to being here. And so I just give and give and give and give, and people take advantage of me and they take advantage of my partners. What I've had done is people will take my paperwork and then they go out and they sell it back on the internet. It's happened multiple times. I've had to get attorneys involved. People that are not actually buying deals, they just get my contracts and then they go out and sell them, because subject to, seller finance, all these disclosures are not, they're not just regular contracts. They're very, very intricate deals. And so people take my contracts and they've gone out and built websites and funnels to go and monetize on my contracts. I am not okay with that. So the only people that I give my documents to are people that are actual mentor or mentees of mine, people that I mentor, and they're in my program. So if you guys want that, happy to get on a phone call with you and see if that's a good fit for you. But I can at least educate you along the way. But this is a question I get all the time, and I've had people take advantage of me so many times. Do you take payments subject to if the mortgage is an adjustable rate mortgage? Absolutely not. It's one of the cardinal sins of creative financing. I have ran into a couple of guys that say they've successfully done it, but I've also people in a couple of the masterminds I'm in. They got destroyed in 2009, like absolutely destroyed. And the reason they were destroyed is because they bought a bunch of houses 2006, 2007, 2008, all subject to through adjustable rate mortgages. So when the market crashed, what happens to those rates is those rates skyrocket and they lost all their houses. A couple of those people actually were faced with fraud charges because they were doing things incorrectly. Adjustable rate mortgages, in my opinion, is an absolute no. Also, do you deal with the 1098 since the mortgage is in the original owner's name? Yes, we deal with all that kind of stuff. How do you market lease option buyers? So I have a website. It's actually, I have a website. I'll talk about it next week. When Cody's on here, we'll talk about how we built out our website. But we have a website that will attract lease option buyers, seller finance buyers, even though I typically am not a big fan of doing seller finance on my properties because I like being the owner. But we have a website that does that, and we then will go on Facebook Marketplace. We drive traffic to our website through marketing to real estate agents, because think about it. And also mortgage brokers. So if you have friends that are mortgage brokers, they have a lot of people applying for mortgages and they get turned down. So they have a couple of options. Either A, go back and rent and fix their credit, or B, they can come and find somebody like me who can finance them into a house or get them into a lease option. So when you have a lot of friends that are mortgage brokers or LOs, loan officers, that turn down people for mortgages, those are the people that I want in my lease options, right? Those are people that have money. Typically, they really, really want to buy a house. That is like a secret that I actually don't think I've ever let people know that in this Facebook group. That's a really big way to get stuff done. How do you feel about Chase Bank new requirements for a new loan? So guys, this is huge. People that are not it's really cool that you guys are here. It's really cool that you guys are learning. It's cool that everybody's inside the Facebook group. I'm getting a lot of my friends in the industry very jealous of how active our Facebook group is. And again, I consider this our Facebook group. But I really want people taking action, because the reality is what's happening with Chase is they're changing their lending guidelines, and Chase is the first of about a dozen that have already announced that this coming week they're going to make an announcement regarding their lending guidelines. What does that mean for us as investors? What that means is our buyers on the back end. So when I do a fix and flip and I want to sell it on the retail market, my buyer might not be able to secure traditional financing. So I have to look at deals in a way that I have to utilize creative financing. So I have to step in the position as the lender, and I can help my buyer get and secure financing. Pace, can you walk through your decision tree when you get a lead to decide what type of acquisition and exit strategy you are going to use? Yes, I actually made a 45-minute video all about this yesterday in the studio. We're going to put this up in the Facebook group, I think on Thursday or Friday. It's a really, really long answer. And so what I'm trying to do is Sunday service is like, how do I give you guys 2 to 3 minute answers? And if that can answer that question, amazing. If not, I'm going to take that outside. Bobby and myself are going to be out in the field and making really long, like crazy long answers. So I could see Bobby's hands were getting tired. He was holding the camera. He was getting really tired. I'm like, bro, I got to get this answer in. We have to get this answer in. This is a really long answer. So Coral, that's a really great question. I'm going to post that in the Facebook group actually like Thursday or Friday. Phil Gore, I'm negotiating my first subject to deal. I did see that. I want to wrap it with seller finance. Should I be worried about COVID impacting my ability to find a buyer? Any other details I should watch out for? So yes, Phil, you need to understand that now you are no longer a real estate investor in this transaction. You are now a lender. You now have to abide by lending guidelines. You now have to make sure that this buyer is underwritten. I have an underwriter that can underwrite that buyer for you. My first wrap, my first deal that I ever did on a seller finance wrap, I ended up having the district attorney call my office. Not the actual district attorney, but somebody that works for him. The district attorney's office called my office because one of my seller finance wraps had complained that I was going after them for, I was basically a predatory lender. Okay, so this is one of the probably 10 reasons why I stay away from seller financing. I know why most people will go after seller finance because they go, well, I don't have any private lenders. It's an easy way to get into it. I like that. You've got to make sure you get your buyer underwritten. The COVID thing is actually only going to raise your ability to find a seller finance buyer, especially what we were just talking about, Phil. Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, a lot of the big banks are now tightening their lending guidelines. And what does that mean for you? That means you, as somebody who knows how to negotiate and get a subject to deal under contract, you're going to be able to sell your deals faster than any other wholesaler can sell their deals. I'm telling you, wholesale during this next 12 to 18 months will slow down to a point where the main question I will get as a wholesaler, because I also wholesale, the main question I get is now starting to be, should I stay away from wholesale over the next 12 months or should I get in the game? And it's usually not that question. Usually it's like, how do I get in the game? But now wholesale is going to take a back seat to a lot of things. I'm not saying we're not getting deals. We're still buying, a good 3 to 4 deals a week on our wholesale company, but it's changing dramatically. Our buyer, our cash fix and flipper is now worried about them putting it on the market and not being able to secure funding. So for you as a creative finance investor, I know you're just starting, but it will only improve your odds of finding those buyers. Where do you go to build relationships with transactional lenders? So this is something I actually teach in my mentorship. We currently have about $3 million in private capital in our business. All of that came through one method. If I taught you that method, it would actually be overran. It's not something that everybody can go out and do. 99% of the stuff I teach you guys cannot be oversaturated, but one of the most successful ways to raise private capital is, believe it or not, I'm a member of a country club. We were just at a country club playing golf. A lot of people think you've got to be a member of a country club, be a member of like the Rotarian Society and the Rotary and all that kind of stuff. That's not it. I can teach you guys how to do that, but I would probably piss off a handful of my students teaching that because it would become oversaturated. So that thrown to the side, I have a really great tactic. I'd say out of my $3 million we have, $2.5 million is raised through one means. But the first way to go for transactional lenders, well, Chandler, tell me, what do you mean by transactional lender? Because in my world, a transactional lender is somebody that says, I'm going to help you double close a deal. Okay, that's my world. Doesn't mean that you're your description is different. But when I need to double close a deal, I'll have a transactional lender come in for like 2 days. They fund the whole thing. They get paid a flat fee. That's a transactional lender for me. Are you talking about private lending? Help me understand that a little bit. Yeah, Quest IRA. I've talked a lot about that. The challenge with that is that you have to be an approved Quest IRA person. And if you guys are going and raising capital at like a Quest IRA, you can easily be put in a really bad situation. It's called solicitation. It's a white collar crime that will put you in prison if you are soliciting investors that you don't already know and have pre-existing relationships with. So be very careful with the Quest IRA method. I know a couple of people that spent 2 years in prison, federal prison, for raising private capital through going to like Quest or these other IRA meetups, meeting investors, raising capital, and then getting thrown in prison for solicitation, because you're not allowed to talk about raising capital to people that you haven't known. They're not friends and family. What is a reasonable amount to charge as an assignment fee for sub-2 owner finance deal? So I've paid anywhere. If I'm involved in the deal, I typically will pay a finder's fee. So I'm the one that structures and closes the deal. My team, you bring a lead, we take it all the way through and we close the transaction. We'll typically pay a small finder's fee of like $2,500 bucks. But if you bring the deal, you structure it yourself, I've paid as much as $23,000 on subject to deals that are sent to me. So really, really awesome ability to not raise capital, but to assign these deals. We just did a deal the other day. It's a subject to seller finance hybrid deal. We ended up assigning it out because it's in a 55 plus community I don't want to buy in. And we assigned it out, made $13,000 on an assignment fee. So what I teach the students I mentor is that you should be aiming for a $10,000 to $20,000 assignment fee. If you go over that, you're just getting greedy. But you're going to be able to get way more deals and way more assignments than people who are just focusing on wholesaling. Thank you for the great ideas on using loan officers and mortgage originators. Question: Do you create a pipeline of renter buyers prior to locking in the next deal, or do you just lock them in and worry about it later on? So Jorge Gutierrez, great question. Here's the challenge with keeping a database of any sort of buyer. Buyers don't sit there and wait in the wings. They're typically in the decision-making process. So yes, we do have an ongoing rolling database. That database is really no bigger than 100 to 200 buyers at any given time. Our marketing is constantly spinning those people. So 20 people fall off, 20 people come back on. The reason for that is, again, they're making the decision. And if I don't have a property for them in an area or price range, they move on and they find something else, typically a rental. So keeping a database of those buyers is a challenge. You have to have a good system and good marketing that is just constantly filling it up. But that is a wonderful question. Yes, we do have a whole system along. Ray Spencer, my bro, here in Phoenix, Arizona. Bro, thank you. Are you saying you're into Sunday service? I appreciate it. Tristan, 55 plus communities is a great topic of discussion. Do you buy in any of these? Yes, I own multiple of these. If you do buy, how do strategies vary? So for me personally, you have to understand that most people in 55 plus communities are not renters. Okay. They get to a point in their life where they actually are home buyers. So usually you're not going to buy a house subject to or seller finance or land contract or lease option and then rent it out. Usually you're going to want to finance it on the back end. So a seller finance is a really good exit strategy for 55 plus. The biggest challenge I see in Arizona for 55 plus is that there's certain parts of town like Sun City West and Sun City Grand that my 55 plus communities have an HOA of like $500, $600, and $700 depending on where they are. However, I just bought a 55 plus community that has no HOA unless you want to use the facilities of $150 a year. So you're at like, I think $13 a month, something like that, to use the facilities, and that's your HOA fee. So the thing that really kills 55 plus communities in Arizona is the HOA or the association dues, because they can be very heavy or they can be very, very low. The other thing that kills them is the time of year. It's not that I don't want to buy them, it's the time of the year. So I'm not going to buy in a 55 plus community in the dead heat of summer because there's no buyers. All of we call them snowbirds for people across the country watching this. They're snowbirds. Those guys are not looking to buy, rent, do anything in the summertime. They're not even around. They're in Michigan, they're in Oregon, they're RVing, they're doing whatever, right? Bro, let's be friends. Come to Miami and I'll get you some sushi. Bro, absolutely. I appreciate all the questions you ask. You ask probably some of the best questions on here. You keep me on my toes, and I can't thank you enough for doing that. Thank you so much. Pace, would you say the market is going to be lease option or sub 2 over wholesaling? And absolutely. Here's the thing, guys. You are going to see very soon. I haven't been talking about my mentorship program for the last year. I've been mentoring people behind the scenes and just kind of perfecting my system because I've been seeing this coming. And now that this is coming out, we actually are going to start marketing in a big way for the mentorship program because that's what everybody needs. It's not what they want necessarily. Yes, a lot of people do want creative financing, but it's what everybody needs. And the people who learn creative financing first are going to dominate their market. I dominate Phoenix. I hate to say it, but if there's a creative finance deal that is thrown out on the table, everybody says, send it to Pace, right? So what I'm teaching my students, I'm teaching the people I mentor is become the local guy in your area through this, and this method. And within 3 or 4 months, you have an onslaught of deals coming to you that you don't have to actually market for. So I think subject to seller finance, all the creative financing structures are absolutely going to change the game. And if you are not utilizing these as a real estate investor, first off, you're not a real estate investor. A wholesaler, guys, I'm a wholesaler, so I'm not criticizing wholesaling. I'm just calling it is what it is. Wholesaling, you're just a marketer. That's all you are. You don't own real estate. As a wholesaler, it is just one of the tools that we hold in our bag, just one of the tools. A lot of wholesalers, that's the only tool they hold in their bag, so therefore they are just a marketer. They are not a real estate investor. But the real estate investors who are growing and accelerating their business in the COVID, when this whole thing fell apart, I looked at this and I was like, wow, thank you so much. This will bless me, my partners, all my students, all my private capital. We will absolutely clean up over the next 18 to 36 months. Absolutely clean up. And guys, we're buying 8 to 12 properties every single month. We're accumulating and building our portfolio as it is before the COVID deal. So you just tell me when the COVID thing falls apart or when the economy comes back together and we've had the all-time greatest jump in unemployment rate, what do you think is going to happen to the people who understand creative financing to a high degree, right? Guys, if you want to hear about the mentorship, on April 15th, I personally and 2 people on my team are going to be making calls to see if people are actually a good fit for the next round of the creative financing. It's not just subject to either. We're not just teaching subject to. We're not just teaching seller finance. We're also teaching lease options. We're teaching land contracts, master leases, agreement for sales, which is the same thing. And then also we're teaching novation agreements, which a lot of people don't know about. Novation agreements is one of those things that we utilize that not a lot of people understand or even have heard about. And if you guys want me to talk about what a novation agreement is, I'd be happy to do that. But yeah, we're taking calls. Go to my link. It's always in my bio. It's the same link I always share. It's basically a link that will give you the ability to jump in like the early bird thing. Jump on that, and then me and my team will see if it's even a good fit for you. How do you normally like to structure private capital and the paybacks that puts, this is a great question. So first and foremost, do you know what puts my partners at ease? First and foremost, what puts my private lenders at ease? Is it the structure? Is it, the deal, or is it me? Am I the one that puts my private lenders at ease? Do private lenders are they really investing in the deal? Yeah, they're investing in the deal, but really, you don't want private investors investing in a deal. You want investors saying, I want a standard return. I want to check every single month. And I'm investing in you, Pace. In fact, we just raised another $500,000 from an attorney. And that attorney says to me, he goes, hey, I just want to be secured. I really don't care how I'm secured. And I really, whatever you need, I've got unlimited funds, but let's start with $500,000. I'll fund you $500,000. I don't care where you use the money. just make sure I'm secured on whatever properties you want. So we secured him against 3 properties, all in second position. Those houses have some equity. They're backed with cash flow and really good rates. And then we're taking that $500,000, and he's signed off permission to go use that $500,000 to go do whatever we want with it. So I can go buy, with $500,000, I can literally go and buy probably, I don't know, 30, 40 really good deals with that $500,000, just because of understanding how we structure things. So you gotta, before I answer this question, I want you to understand private money invests in you. They don't invest in the deal. They don't invest in the structure. They invest in you. So very rarely, and you guys will hear this in my recorded calls. By the way, I uploaded like 2 more calls. We got a really, really good contract the other day. I want to talk about this tonight. We got a really, really good contract the other night. And then I recorded the conversation with the seller before I signed the contract, and then I recorded the conversation as I was going through the paperwork with him. That is also in the same link that I just attached here. So go check that link out. You'll be able to scroll down, and I've got like, I think I have like 400 recorded calls, but the majority of those are shared with my mentorship students. The 30 or so that I share here are just a select couple that are somewhat fresh. And then like the really, really meat and heavy potatoes I save for my mentorship students. Obviously they pay for it. They obviously are justified in feeling like they should have like the meat and potatoes and all that kind of stuff. But I structure my private lenders this way. I always put private lenders in second position. Why? Because I always have a mortgage in first position. I'm buying houses subject to or seller finance. So there's a mortgage or a deed of trust in first position already. So my lenders go in second position. They're secured against the property, again, with a second note and deed of trust in second position. And we are always gearing and aiming for an 8% interest-only return for those investors. I have some investors at 10%, but we're in the process of refinancing them out to 8% other investors. Jonathan Castano, again, bro, holy moly, you and these amazing questions. I love it. I'm going to jump on Daniel Mendez's question here in a second. Curious, on being in second position as the private lender, they can't really foreclose on you, right? The mortgage takes precedent. They can foreclose on me, but the mortgage takes precedent. So if there's not enough equity, basically, let's say that the house is worth 300 grand, the first mortgage has 150, and then my private lender has 50 grand on it. The private lender could foreclose on me if he really wanted to. But let me ask you another question in return, Jonathan. Why would a private lender want to foreclose on me? Right? I don't know why a private lender would ever want to foreclose on me. If a private lender wants out of a deal, I get him out of a deal. There are agreement states they give me 90 days and I'll replace them with another investor. How do you rely on to pitch sub 2 deals to Spanish speaking sellers, and are your contracts in Spanish? The answer is I have 2 girls that work for me that speak Spanish. Anna, who's been with me 6 years, and then Hayel, who's been with me 6 months. Anna started out running my construction company. She still does run all of our rehabs and our flips. She manages all the subcontractors and the employees there. She speaks Spanish, and she's also very good at locking up contracts with Spanish sellers. Yes, all of our contracts have been rewritten with a Spanish attorney, taking our contracts and sending it that way. Very good question. Then Hayel started out on our door knocking team, and we elevated her to be one of my personal assistants. Now she runs the JV department. So she's very helpful in helping other people that need structuring on their deals. Yeah, by the way, Jonathan, you always have really good questions, man. I appreciate it. Hey, Pace, when is your sub 2 calculator spreadsheet coming out? Coral, we decided to only share that with our mentorship students. I'm really sorry. The challenge is, I hate to keep bringing this up. I haven't been talking about this for a long time, but now that it's like becoming more widely known, people are asking more questions about it. If you are one of my students, number one, I have a lot of students frustrated that I do Sunday service. I have a lot of students frustrated that I do so much content for people for free because they feel like, and they get a tremendous amount up and above that, but you have to understand human nature. They feel like because they paid for something, they own me in a weird way. So there's certain things that I give out to them because it justifies their position as a mentor student. And then there's a lot of stuff that I give you guys for free. I don't see anybody else out here in the creative finance world doing what I'm doing. So I feel bad, but at the same time, I am conflicted, right? I've got to make sure that I take care of the people who want to be mentored and are serious about their business, there's certain things I give them that give them an advantage over their individual markets around the country. So hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, it's already built. We have people using it. Yeah, having a bilingual squad member is super key. Really good comment, Jonathan. If you don't have a squad member that speaks Spanish, then you need to add somebody that is a friend of yours that speaks Spanish, and then you guys can kind of JV on stuff. Have you ever had issues with 20% second position qualifying for a traditional 80% mortgage? I'm trying to work a deal where the seller would carry the down payment note to limit my cash in. Have you ever had issues with the 20% second position? I don't quite understand the question, Greg. I'm so sorry. Maybe I've got lights in my face and I'm stupid. I apologize. Daniel Mendez, why do you feel that other big players in Arizona or in the country in general aren't jumping into this sub-2 strategy? It's a lot of work, bro. It's an absolute a lot of work. Also, it takes years to understand. So for me, I paid one guy $47,000 for a mentorship a couple years back. I paid $15,000 to another guy for a mentorship. I can tell you I learned more by physically doing it and watching myself do it, and then also rely on other people that are doing it than I did through any mentorship. And that's where I kind of built my own, not kind of built my own, but that's where I built my own to condense that learning curve way, way, way down, because it takes a long time. Wholesale, I can get somebody out and doing wholesale in 15 minutes. In seller finance, creative finance, it takes a couple of days to educate people on what to say and what not to say. But if let's say you're brand new to the game, wholesale, you can be talking to a seller about wholesale right now, like within 5 minutes. With really great question, by the way. Love this question. Andy Campbell, apologize being new. So Andy, don't ever apologize for this question. This is the number one question most people are going to ask. When I'm not kidding you, when I jumped into this game, into creative financing, it was the hardest thing for me to truly understand was creative finance is the umbrella. And underneath that umbrella, there are multiple strategies. So there's seller finance, which means the seller is selling their house to me and giving me the ability to pay them in payments. They have no mortgage. They have no debt. I'm paying them directly, right? That's a seller financing me. That's seller finance. Subject to is exactly the same as seller finance, except the difference is that seller doesn't own the house free and clear. Therefore, there's a mortgage that has to be paid every single month. So you're taking over their mortgage. That's subject to, right? Subject to, the phrase itself is I'm buying the house subject to the existing debt. So I'm responsible to the debt. It could be a mortgage. It could be a mechanics lien. It could be, we have a property that we're putting up on the YouTube channel in a couple of days where we bought the property subject to, and then we also bought an air conditioning unit attached to the property on subject to as well. So it doesn't have to be just the house specifically. Can you talk about entry fee on a sub-2 seller finance on higher end property? I'm in California. Ty, I would love to. You need to ask me a more specific question so I can jump into that, because I have a problem, Ty. I'm a rambler. I'm a talker, and I will just assume I understand your question, and then I'll go on for 30 minutes, and you'll say, no, that's not what I meant. So get me a little bit more specifics, and I'll jump on that. Hi, Pace. Can you briefly touch on lease options? When completing the paperwork, are those two separate agreements? It's one agreement is for the lease. Another agreement is for the option to execute on the purchase price. So yes, they are two different contracts. We actually put that paperwork up in the Facebook group. That's some of the paperwork I have shared with you guys. So I don't keep everything away from you. There's certain things that I do share with you. The things that basically I go to people that are my mentorship students. I ask them if it's okay for me to share with you guys. I just don't want people pissed off that I'm giving away too much for free, because I'm known as like the free guy, the guy that's giving everything away and working my guts out to educate everybody for free. I don't want to give too much away that I piss people off, but I also want to make sure you guys have what you need on certain things. So lease option and a lease contract and an option contract, both of those are in the file section in our Facebook group. So I'd go check that out. Is there a max price range that you are trying to stay within? Why? No, we've got deals. We own a couple of properties that are like in the $600,000-700,000 range. And then we've got properties in the $60,000-70,000 range. So it just matters on cash flow, and it matters on neighborhood, location. And also it matters what kind of money it takes to get into that deal, right? Absolutely, Monique. For sub 2, how much can be done remotely? At what point do you need to boots on the ground? So I have properties in Atlanta. I have properties in Dallas. We have properties in Florida as well, and a couple other places. And I can tell you, it is very easy to do this remotely, incredibly easy to do this remotely. I would say that it's sometimes easier to do it remotely. But what I like to do personally, because we have so many things going on, I'm currently running 12 different businesses. We like to have boots on the ground. So we partner with people, other wholesalers, other investors in those markets that we're buying, so that when I execute that deal, somebody's there physically just in case we have a flood or some crazy thing goes on, right? Because now we own real estate. I want to make sure it's really easy for us to jump on. Could you name the different options under Creative Finance umbrella again? Yes. Number 1, subject to. Number 2, seller finance. Very similar. These are one and the same. There is a difference, though, so I will create them as a difference. Number 3, actually, I should just type it out, right? Let's do something fun here, guys. Cody's not on here, so why do we care? Hold on just a second. We can take all the time we want. Okay. I'm going to add my screen to the deal. Okay, we are going to add my screen to the deal, and we're going to jump into something here that is super interesting. Let's see if we can just pop this up on its own screen. There we go. Okay, so guys, here we go. Check this out. Now, here's purchases. I was just filling this out for somebody the other day. I didn't quite finish it. So let's go through all of the ways to buy a property and exit on a property. Look at this, guys. So number 1, subject to taking over the mortgage. Okay, subject to is I'm taking over the mortgage. I pay their mortgage and they keep it in their name. Can you guys see this okay? Okay, you can. Yeah, awesome. Subject to taking over the mortgage. I pay their mortgage and they keep it in their name. Title is us. Usually, let's say, I won't get into that. That's something I was teaching somebody this the other day, so let me just get out of this. Title is us, which means we own the property. So even though the mortgage is in the seller's name, we bought the house subject to, the mortgage is still in the seller's name, we own the property, okay? Seller finance means there's 0 debt, it has been paid off, and then I secure that debt, so meaning the seller will give me a loan for their own house, okay? So I tell people this story all the time, my F-150 story. Some people on here are going to be like, oh, the F-150 story. I've heard that 1,000 freaking times. But I sell, let me put it in terms very, very easy to understand, is if you have a car and you want to sell that car for a very high dollar amount, more than what it's worth, you can simply just sell that to somebody by letting them make payments to you. That's it. So I sold an F-150 for $12,500 a couple years ago that was only worth $5,000. How did I do that? I let them make payments toward the $12,500 of $200 a month until it was paid off. So that's seller financing, meaning I'm buying something from a seller. They're allowing me to make payments. I actually don't own one house right now, seller finance, that is anything over 0%. Every house, every single thing I do, I negotiate 0%. Then lease option. I can buy on a lease option. We just bought a deal last week on a lease option. Here's another one is land contract, contract for deed, also known as agreement for sale, or some people will call this like an installment purchase. Okay, so these are essentially the same exact thing, just kind of depends on where you are in the country, what terms you use, what title companies, what closing attorneys will use these things. You actually don't close. You don't use a title company. The only thing you do is you make sure that the title is clean and clear. That's it. You want to make sure title is clear. You pull title, you get a preliminary report. Okay, now another way to buy is on a novation agreement. That's something that a lot of people understand. Okay, you know what a novation agreement is? I'll jump into that in a little bit. let's see, wholesale assignment fee. This was me going through a story. Sorry, guys. Wholesale, wrap, lease option, SUR, Subtail, Airbnbs, group homes. This is our GoKnock app that we are building. So these are basically the two acquisition strategies and the two and all the 7 disposition strategies. So land contract. Oh, here we go. Another one, master lease. You can buy on a master lease, control it, and that's primarily it. There's 2 other ones, but I'm not going to get into those. They're so incredibly rare. It's just ultra confusing. But the majority of them that you're buying are probably these 5. Master leases are used very, very rarely, but these are the main 5. And then if you really ask what are 80% of the deals acquired in, it's these 3. Okay, 80% of our deals are acquired in those 3 strategies. So sorry, guys, I can't see the screen or any questions you guys might have asked. So let me remove this real quick. So, okay, how do you negotiate 0 rate on seller finance? So very easily, Raphael, go listen to my conversations. I've recorded these dozens of times. I share them with you guys. And I just uploaded the link. I refreshed the link to a 0%. There's a couple 0% deals in there. In fact, there's a seller recorded conversation in that link. Again, it's the same link I use all the time. So people say, where's the link? Where can I find it? It's the same link every single time. That link will take you to like all 10 of the things that I'm currently talking about. Okay, so yeah, you'll hear me exactly how to negotiate 0% terms. I had a seller that told me flat out, and Bobby, my videographer, was there. It was really cool. Seller says, I want $20,000 down and I want 8% interest. And I was able to convince the seller to do $2,500 down at 0% financing. And I did that all in a recorded conversation. So you've got to go listen to those recorded conversations. You can hear all that kind of stuff. So Tristan, I actually changed the link. Okay, so Vinay Paul, lease option sandwich deal does not give you depreciation or tax benefit. That is correct. You actually are not the owner of the property. You just have rights over the property. So when you choose to do an LO, when do you choose to do a lease option sandwich versus subject to? Okay, here's why I will do a lease option acquisition over a subject to or seller finance subject acquisition. When the bank is a very small community bank and there's a loan on that house, I will typically buy in a lease option. And the reason for that is because on subject to or seller finance, not seller finance, but on subject to, I don't want to deal with the due on sale clause in the slightest. And so for me, I don't mind the due on sale clause. I understand how to work around it. I understand all that kind of stuff. But the people I educate and the people I mentor, they're very afraid of the due on sale clause when they're first new. So I just tell them, well, if you're first new and you're just kind of getting your feet wet, acquire utilizing a lease option. That's where I tell people go buy lease options. Also on lease options, sometimes you'll get sellers that are like, I don't want to give you control of my property. You go, okay, great. Well, let's do a lease option where I have to come in and wipe out your existing debt. That is pretty rare. If you're a good salesperson and you're a good negotiator, you're getting control of the property, you're closing escrow in either a seller finance, a subject to, or even a hybrid. That's one of the other acquisition strategies is a hybrid. It's basically a mix between a couple of these different things. So yeah, Tristan, when you send out that link, send them that new link. A lot of sellers moving to a new home often want to make an equity down payment on their next home. How can we overcome that objection? Since sub to, the seller doesn't get a huge down payment from us. So have you ran into that? Because I haven't. I get sellers that if a seller has enough pain and enough things for you to solve by buying it subject to in the first place, it's very rare that they need some big, massive down payment on their next house. Now, the house I live in, I bought it from a seller who had already put a down payment on his new house, and I was able to help him get qualified for that new house by buying his house subject to. But it's very rare, for at least the conversations I'm having, where people have enough pain that they're willing to let you have their house subject to in the first place, that also want some big, massive down payment. What's the best way to bring up creative financing to the seller when you know it's not a wholesale opportunity? Just wanted your thoughts on how to transition the conversation. Okay, is your name Louis, or is it Lewis? I'm so sorry. This is always confusing me because depending on what part of the country I'm in, I can mess that up. I apologize. Ooh, some really good questions, guys. Amazing, amazing questions. I appreciate it. Guys, if you're getting any value from this, like I don't think anybody in this whole Facebook, because I have a whole private call for the people who I mentor, and I don't think any of them come into Sunday service because they get tremendous value over on that. But anybody in here, you guys aren't paying me or Cody or my company to do this stuff for you. So if you're getting value, let us know. We do it because we want to help you guys out. We do it because we don't want people. In fact, I had a call on Wednesday, a wholesaler who called me about 5-6 months prior to that, said, hey, I want to get your subject to paperwork. And I said, no problem. I'll help you out if I'm involved in the deal, and I'll get involved in the deal and I'll bring my paperwork and my expertise. He's like, screw that. I don't want Pace to make any money. So he goes off and does the deal himself. 5 months later, due on sale clause gets called from the bank. And then he also gets a mortgage fraud lawsuit on him. Calls me up. He's like, Pace, I need your help. I need your help. I need your help. And it's a deal he refused to let anybody else make money on. He wanted to do it himself. He's a greedy bastard. And I said, dude, I'm happy to help you. But I'm just curious, like, why is it that human nature just can control you to the point where you were counting I was going to make $3,000 helping you. And I have a family and I have like overhead and all this kind of stuff. You didn't want to let me make $3,000 and let you make $15,000 on an upfront deal. Like, what the heck, man? So anyway, on Wednesday, he calls me and we help him out. And I'm going through, it's going to take a month to fix his situation. It's going to take an entire month, and it's going to cost him about $5,000 out of pocket to solve this problem, due on sale and fraud. So we're helping him out. We're fixing it. But the reason I brought that up is because I throw out a lot of help. And one of the things I throw out a lot of help with, Louis or Lewis, is I have multiple recorded conversations that I share with you guys where I bring up the conversation from wholesale to creative finance. And here is the line that I use. It's very simple. You're going to start hearing a lot of people do it. So let's say a seller's on the phone with me, and I have a lot of these recorded conversations we share with people again, but I'm going to rehearse it for you because it's mechanically hard for me to get that call on the show right now. So we get a hold of the seller, and the seller says, well, I'm looking for $200,000 for my house. And then my guy looks at the price and he's like, dude, the house is worth $200,000. Oh my gosh. So what we do is we say, great, well, how's that going? Have you been talking to a real estate agent? We ask a couple more discovery questions. And then when we absolutely know we can't talk them down on wholesale terms, we then go to them and we say this one line, this is it. This is the line that everybody asked me for. This is the line. It converts it from a wholesale to a creative financing conversation. You now are in a completely different realm. The line is this. Okay, Mrs. Seller, if we were able to come up to that price, would you be willing to give us terms? That's the entire line. That's it. If I was willing to come up to your price of $200,000, would you be willing to give me terms? And the sellers don't know what terms means. And so I then jump into my F-150 story, which I've said 1,000 times, to the point where I think a lot of people around the country are actually DMing me and saying, I'm using your F-150 story. It's working, it's working, it's working. So go and try and find my F-150 story. It's about a 3-minute story. But the way I convert it from wholesale to creative financing is that exact thing. I say, hey, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, if we were able to come up to that price, not saying we can, but if we were willing to come up to that price, would you be able to give us terms? That's it. That's the one line. There's nothing more magical about it than that. Okay. Pace, do you use a different LLC for each creative financing deal? No, I use an LLC for every 20 properties that I purchase. So we buy 20 properties, we start another LLC, 20 properties, start another LLC, 20 properties, start another LLC. A lot of people will talk about land contracts, land trusts. We don't buy in a land trust for 2 reasons. Number one, land trusts do not stop the due on sale clause. They just simply don't. You show me proof of that, and I will start buying in a land trust. But even then, the second reason why I don't buy in a land trust is because a land trust in Arizona, the title companies will not insure a transaction that is purchased through a land trust. Do you know why? The reason why is because the purpose of buying in a land trust is for anonymity. It's for hiding and shrouding who is actually buying the property. So the title companies in Arizona will not issue you title insurance and insure that transaction if you do not name the beneficiary of that land trust. Therefore, there is no benefit of owning a land or buying anything through a land trust. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's see. Oh, Jose, Joe, bro, are you not watching my YouTube channel, homie? I am going through and documenting properties through my Real Deal series that's all about the actual properties I'm buying. I will buy mobile homes that are 1950. I will buy brand new homes. I will buy everything in between. I'll buy multifamily. Everything I can possibly buy, I will buy on subject to as long as it works. Okay, so Lucky Singh, in sub 2, what if the original owner calls the loan? Really simple. You either, oh, thank you, Horacio. I really appreciate that. So Lucky Singh, what to do if the original owner calls the loan? Number one, I've had none of my students have ever had the loan called due, but if you are one of my students, one of my mentors or mentees, I will help you on the due on sale clause if it does get called due. But typically what people teach around the country on subject to, the kind of the old traditional way, is that you just go get another loan and you refinance it out, which I don't think is a great strategy. I have my own strategies, but that's what people have been teaching for 30, 40 years. Or you can deed the property back to the seller who sold it to you. Or you can walk away from the deal, which is what a lot of other creative finance guys will do. That's not what we do. We have a really specific strategy that we utilize, but those are 3 strategies that a lot of other people have used in the past. Cool. Yeah, Joe, we do creative financing. We do subject to on all sorts of types of houses. Wanting to get a few deals in hopes of joining your membership. You've provided info has been stellar. Straight to the BS. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I teach the way that I want to be taught. I am a guy that if I don't see what is going on and I can't learn directly with like no bullshit, I am very critical of people. In fact, like that's one of the main criticisms I get from people that are my friends. They're like, man, you're a little bit critical. Like I don't criticize people. I just hold people to a little bit higher standard. Not that I'm like angry if it doesn't work out, because I'm not an angry person, but I just am like, if I spent money on something, I would want it to look this way and I would want to be taught this way. And so you guys are spending time, you guys are supporting my social media. You guys are, not that I make money off of that, but you're supporting me and helping me, grow my business. I appreciate you guys. So I want to give you as much value as I possibly can. So thank you so much. Wow. Unfortunate. Some people are so focused on money. Have one property. I'd love to work with you. Yeah, bro, be happy to work with you. Jamil and I have created a new company. It's called Keegley Creative. We're going to be helping people nationwide. Keegley is going to start selling franchises. I don't know if you guys know who Keegley is, but you should definitely look into who Keegley is. I'm not an owner of Keegley. I'm an owner of Keegley Creative. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be helping people do they're going to be doing their dispo. So helping you guys find lease option buyers, wrap buyers. We're going to help you find every type of buyer on the back end for all your creative deals. That's going to be something that we're rolling out in the next 60 to 90 days. It's going to be absolutely huge. How do terms work? So LaShawn, a couple of weeks ago in the Facebook group, I did a 2-hour live where I went on a whiteboard and I structured it all out. I think I'm going to do that again this week. I think maybe I'll do a live. Guys, make a comment of like what day I should go live this week. So maybe I'll go live for like 2 hours this week and I'll walk through very specific deals. I'm not shitting you. I'll spend 2 hours on this and I will structure out 2 deals, exactly how I got them, how I negotiated them, why I thought it was a deal, how I brought in private money or how I structured a deal so I didn't have to get private money. Most of our deals I don't need private money on, guys. So I'd be happy to walk you guys through all that stuff. But the challenge is going through and telling you how terms work on a live is challenging when I've got 75 other questions I haven't gotten to. So I really apologize. But guys, make a comment below of what day this coming week I should go live. Not Monday, because wholesale hotline's Monday. I've got wholesale hotline tomorrow with Brent and Jamil. By the way, guess who our guest is on April 20th? Anybody know who our guest is on April 20th for Wholesale Hotline? Make a comment below if you know who it is. What's the best creative financing book? So I've read a lot of creative financing books. They all contradict themselves. All of them contradict themselves. One person says do this person says that. The biggest thing that you'll hear people fighting over is land contracts, or not land contracts, but land trust, how to buy your properties, how to protect yourselves. People fight about that all the time. And so I stopped reading books, to be honest, because I go to people who are actively doing the business, and that's where I learn most of everything I'm currently learning, or I have learned for the last several years. Why? Because I want to see. If I look at guys who have portfolios that I want to seek after. So my goal is to hold 1,000 properties. That's my goal. And when I have 1,000 properties, we will easily get to that probably within the next 4 to 5 years. When I have 1,000 properties, I'll be worth close to $300 million. So like that's my personal goal. I don't really care about the money. It's more like a goal to have. In order for me to learn, I don't want to go learn from somebody who wrote a book necessarily. I think it's nice, but I get a lot more from people who are holding 50 or more properties themselves that they purchased through creative financing. So I'm lucky to know a lot of those people. And so when I have a question, that's who I call. I stopped referencing books, but I'd say a really good place to start is here in Sunday service and asking questions, and also jumping on our lives and being in the Facebook group. No book is going to give you as much value as this Facebook group if you just scroll down. So if you have time to read, scroll down in the Facebook group. I've probably put over 400 videos in this Facebook group in just 3 months. Let's see. Yeah, I got my hat from the Masters, bro. That's where I got it from. Okay, so Jonathan Castano, he's always asking bomb questions. I noticed on a deal you spoke recently, you structured the lease option at 7 years. What do you look at to determine the years you set the option to? So we used to do lease options for 1 year, 2 years, and 3 years. And I just simply feel like, and this is another thing that you're going to hear, there's a guy who's the lease option king. He contradicts me in my belief, not saying he's wrong or I'm wrong, but my belief is I've gone through it. I know that if I give somebody a lease option for 1 year, there's no way they're going to fix their credit and have enough credibility to go and get traditional financing. Okay. So we've learned that that's kind of predatory. The majority of the lease option tenants that we had at 1, 2, and 3 years were not executing their lease options, and it just looked really bad to us. So we extended that to 5 years. And then when somebody wants 7 years, we will give them 7 years. They might have filed bankruptcy. They might have gone through a divorce. They might have gone through a really bad business breakup, something like that. And they just need more time. That's it. And so we'll structure more time on a lease option based on their specific situation. That's basically the answer. There's no scientific reason behind it. Now, that's God's honest truth. Most answers are yes, absolutely. Most answers are in the Facebook group. And if they're not, guys, that's why I do this Sunday. You know why I do Sunday service? One, I like it. I enjoy talking. It's one of my gifts. But and I just love exercising my gift. But the other reasons I do is because you guys ask me questions I've never been asked before. I love it. I learn. It's not that I learn more. It's that I articulate and communicate. You guys have heard about the learning pyramid, right? So the learning pyramid is all about 90% of what we learn and we retain. We retain 90% of what we retain are the things that we actually teach others. So I love teaching you guys because it helps me retain my information. It helps me solidify the things that I've done in the past, articulate them, have them come out of my mouth, and I retain all the information. That's why people are like, man, how does your memory so good? I don't know if my memory is good. I just think that I talk all the time and I'm retaining so much information. So in Sunday service, that's what this is for. We've gone now an hour. Nobody's asked me a question tonight that I haven't been asked before. But usually somebody will ask me a question that I haven't been asked before, and that's why I love Sunday service. So you'll never get these answers. Some of the answers I'm giving you, you'll never get these in a book or somebody's YouTube channel. They just simply won't give the information away. Believe me, I've tried. Before I spent the $47,000 on a mentorship program years ago, I tried. I tried to get the information, and it's just not there. Okay, so what percentage of your deals are wholesale and what percentage is creative during these times? So you have to understand, I own two different businesses. Wholesale and my creative finance are two separate LLCs, two separate structures completely. Okay. But we haven't changed. My wholesale is still cranking out 12 to 20 properties a month. April, let's see, where are we out on April? So I think for April, we're at probably 5 contracts so far for April, and we're 12 days through the month. So it sounds like we'll probably end the month somewhere around 13 to 15 contracts. On creative financing, it's about the same. I'll be anywhere between 10 to 15 contracts on seller finance. Half of those I will hold myself. I will keep those myself. The other half, I will dispo those out and find an end buyer for those, or assign those to another buy and hold investor. Yes, guys, Max Maxwell is the guest on April 20th for Wholesale Hotline, our show on Monday night. So thank you for pointing that out. Max Maxwell is Max Maxwell is our guest. Sorry, I'm reading other people's questions. Pace, I'm new to LO, but it is my understanding of it correct. You're taking over the title of the house, leaving the mortgage in the original owner's name, and finding a tenant to pay his mortgage plus extra for cash flow to yourself for an agreed amount of years. And at the end of the lease contract, you give back to the house to the owner. Absolutely not. You are not giving. What was the purpose of buying the property? Just the cash flow? Absolutely not. There's way too much liability just to cash flow and give the property back. At the end of the lease option, so I buy the property from the owner, Daniel. The owner sells it to me on an option contract at $200,000. I will then go do an option contract. That's why it's called the sandwich lease option. I will then do another option contract with another end buyer at $225,000. So not only will I cash flow during that entire 5 years, but I also get that $25,000 chunk at the end when that buyer on the end pays me and pays the underlying seller all in one fell swoop. Gracie Joe, on sub 2 deals, it's recommended that you have 6 months of reserves in the event that anything interrupts your income on the property. Is that something that you practice so that you can fulfill your obligation to your lenders? So Gracie Joe, that is an absolute, I know exactly where you got that from. It's floated around the internet and in books and stuff like that for a long time, and I do not agree with it. What that is it's in my opinion, somebody discouraging new investors trying to get into the game. How do you get 6 months of reserves if you're just starting in the game? The reserves that you care about when you're buying creative financing is your cash flow. So instead of taking that cash flow as a paycheck, you then put that cash flow back into a war chest and you build up to the 6 months of reserves. So no point in human history, even the COVID crisis right now, nobody has needed 6 months of reserves on a rental property. Nobody. So I understand why they're saying it. They're trying to sell education or whatever they're trying to do, but they're discouraging new people from getting into the game. And no, I did not start out that way. When I started buying properties, instead of taking that cash flow as a paycheck to me to go buy sushi or Monster Energy drinks or diapers for my baby, I would put that money back into my business and build up my reserves at that point. But don't get discouraged in saying, I don't have those reserves, therefore I can't jump into the business. Objection handler for sellers who are open to owner finance but are currently renting or more than you can offer monthly. Then they simply just don't have enough pain. That's it. So I do have renters. We just took one over. We had a seller who had a renter in the property that they were renting it to. Okay. So they would get probably, I think the number was $750 a month in rent. So what I did is, your name Amber Lee Farthing? Amber Lee. Okay. Amber Lee, what I told that seller is I told the seller, go, okay, so you're collecting $750 a month. How much are you putting back into the property at the end of the year? And how much are you bringing in on your taxes and all that kind of stuff? What is your net? Like, what do you actually take home? And the investor, or the seller ended up saying, I'm probably taking home about $150 to $200 a month after everything's said and done. I go, okay, great. So what if I upgraded you? So this is the conversation. This is the conversion. This is the objection handler right here. I always tell that seller, I go, so what if I took you from a landlord and upgraded you to a lender? So instead of you taking home $150 to $200 a month, you would actually take home more like $300 or $400 a month, but you'd remove all that pain and heartache of dealing with a tenant. And the last one, I actually recorded this conversation. I was there with Cody, my partner. This is probably 6 months ago, the last time I had to overcome that. But the seller was a single guy. No, this is where it was. I was in Pennsylvania on March 13th, so less than a month ago. Literally a month ago tomorrow, I was in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania at a Zach Weist event, and I went on a couple of buy appointments with local investors, and we ended up getting a contract with a seller. And the way that I did it is I told the investor, I said, or the seller, I said, you know, it probably sounds, you've owned this property for 25 years. It doesn't sound to me like you're ready to let go of this thing. And let me tell you why. I've been in this game a long enough time that I understand most sellers that own their properties for over 25 years are emotionally connected to not only the tenants, but they're emotionally connected to the property. It's almost like the Sherlock syndrome, which somebody kidnaps you and they abuse you and beat you, but then you end up falling in love with them and or having empathy for them or sympathy for them because you feel bad for them. I feel like you have a love-hate relationship with this property and you're not willing to let it go. You almost enjoy the pain. And on record, like we were recording this, he says, yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. I'm constantly battling myself. I'm constantly fighting with myself. Should I own this? Should I not? And I said, we already know the answer. We already know the answer. At the end of the day, you shouldn't own this property. What you should be doing is when you go down, because he's an older guy, we ended up telling him, so he's like part of a social club where he plays poker with his buddies and stuff on a weekly basis. And I said, you know what's cool is telling your friends you're a landlord and you own property. You know what's way cooler than that is telling your friends that you're a lender and you don't have to dick with any properties. And he was like, oh my gosh, you're absolutely right. And we closed him and we moved it on. We moved it on and that's how we got him to do it. So his payment was $750 a month that he was collecting from his tenant. He ended up letting it go to us for like $300 a month because at the end of the day, he wasn't netting $300 a month. You just have to explain those two things to him. Is number one, I'm going to upgrade you from being a landlord to a lender. Wouldn't you much rather tell your friends that you're a bank rather than some guy that's constantly being abused by your tenants? And he's like, no, I totally get that. He was a single guy. So I also told him, I was like, when you're on your date, and I like brought up Tinder to him, I was like, if you got a girl and she's going to swipe left on you, but then she sees that you're a lender, not a landlord, she's going to swipe right on you. And he laughed and he was like, yeah, you're absolutely true. You're absolutely right. He's like, I need to move on and live my life. Mike, I have a lead on 3 properties in Phoenix with long-term renters in place. Any recommendations? I just started wholesaling recently and haven't built up the reserves yet. Are you wanting to buy these properties or do you want somebody like me to teach you how to wholesale a creative finance deal? A lot of people don't understand that you can wholesale creative finance structures, guys. You can wholesale creative finance structures. So a lot of wholesalers, the reason why they don't jump into creative financing is because they think it requires money out of pocket. And most wholesalers don't make the money that they say they do. And so they don't really have cash to go buy properties. So what if I taught you how to wholesale creative finance deals? Okay, this contract right here, we paid full retail for this deal, $190,000 in a 55 plus community. We paid full retail. I structured a deal where I sold this to not an end buyer, but I guess he's an end buyer. He's going to turn around and rent it out. But I sold it to a buy and hold investor, and he's bringing $20,000 to the table, which means he's paying $20,000 over retail. Why would he be willing to do that? Well, because he didn't have to go get a bank loan. I gave him the loan. The loan is right here. I took over the seller's loan. So if you are not learning how to wholesale a creative finance deal, that is why most wholesalers don't get into the game of creative financing and they don't actually become real investors. I'm not trying to criticize wholesalers. I am a wholesaler. I love wholesaling. In fact, I love wholesaling so much, I decide I want to wholesale creative finance deals as well. Hopefully that helps. I would love to learn that, Pace. Thanks for answering. Yeah, bro, you need to learn how to do that. 100%. I would reach out to Hayel in my group. Hayel, that's what she's in charge of, especially here locally. If you're here local and you're not working with us, bro, everybody else in this Facebook group and people nationwide are constantly blowing me up. I'm not bragging at all. I'm just letting you know I'm the guy that gives everything away for free and I'm helping people all over the country, you can imagine how many people are hitting me up on a daily basis. If you are in Phoenix and you are not leveraging my team and you are not working with us on stuff, you're missing out on hundreds of thousands of dollars. You're also missing out on the ability to build your own portfolio. Dude, are you kidding me? Get out of the wholesale hamster wheel. Wholesale is only one tool you should be using. Everybody convinces you because they want to sell you on something. Everybody convinces you wholesale is the end all be all. It's not. Wholesale is the gateway drug into the real world of real estate investing. It's just the gateway drug. It gets you started, gets you in the game. But the guy, my student, this is one of my students that generated this lead, and I went in and closed it for him. He had never done a wholesale deal in his life, and here he is getting his first deal on a creative finance deal that we ultimately ended up wholesaling. So, bro, you got to be using my team. You have to be using my team. Yes, when the seller becomes a lender, always a good pitch. I can't brag, unfortunately. People hate so much. It's crazy. How do you inform the lender you are wholesaling a creative finance deal? You mean the lender and the underlying mortgage, like the mortgage company I take over the subject to on? I don't inform them of anything. They don't know anything about anything. Are you talking about the seller? That's what my disclosures are for. That's why it has multiple deals in here. I let the seller know that I have the ability to assign it. And if I assign it, you guys will hear it in a recorded conversation. I tell them I will either assign it to another LLC, which I might own. I might even assign it to another buyer at the end of the day, and I will therefore introduce you to that buyer if needs be. I always, when I wholesale, I introduce the buyer and the seller together because there's a long-term relationship there, and then I disconnect from the deal and take an assignment fee. The buyer and the seller don't care. Obviously, they wouldn't have known each other without me, right? And the cool thing about that is if I introduce my end buyer to maybe another wholesaler I'm doing JV deals with, this JV guy, this wholesale or this buyer and that JV guy are going to go around me. In creative financing, I don't worry about that. The end buyer and the seller, that's a one-time transaction. I have to go find a new seller every time. And because I'm good at marketing, I don't really have to worry about anybody ever going around me, right? My mother-in-law just retired and no longer wants her house. How do I go about doing a sub-2 so my wife and I take? Bro, great question. A lot of the people on my staff, me, my partner, Matthew Beard, a couple of girls in my office, and 2 people in my acquisition team are currently buying their houses subject to. We all own our houses subject to. It's the way to go. I would ask your mother-in-law. The challenge, Marlon, is that what happens when you sell your house, when you buy the house subject to? Where's your mother-in-law going to go? You got to find that out. She has to have a reason to sell it to you, and she has to have a reason to sell it to you on subject to or creative financing, right? Love the introduction of the end buyer and the seller with creative. Absolutely. Disclose. Honesty is the best policy. It makes your life so easy. How do you go vet your sub-2 assignee? The same way I always vet my cash buyers, Phil. How do you vet your cash buyers? How do you know that they're a good guy? You secure it with money. That's how you do it every single time. Everything's secured with money, so it's not some fluff all on paper. When structuring seller finance, how do you determine the length of time to pay off the seller? Is a 15 or 30-year term a typical amount of time to pay it off? I always go for 30 years, always. And when a seller says, well, when are you going to pay off my mortgage? You guys will hear this in the recorded conversations over and over and over and over. I tell the sellers constantly, I'm not paying off your mortgage, ever. I'm keeping your mortgage. This house right here, I will keep it all the way until it's paid off. And then the mortgage goes away. That's it. I took over your mortgage. I typically throw it back on them, Marisa. Why would I refinance out of their name? You tell me, what is the benefit to them? And definitely what's the benefit to me? What is the benefit to them, Marisa? I'm not getting angry, by the way. It sounds like I am. What is the benefit of me refinancing out the mortgage out of their name in 15 years? In 5 years? In 10 years? What is the benefit to them? Let's talk about that. Because that's what I typically will throw out to a seller and say, that's a really great question, almost as if I've never heard it before. I go, that's a really great question. I'm not surprised you're asking it, but I don't really get that question that often. Why would you want me to refinance it out of your name? What is there something you're worried about? Or is there like what? I make them feel like they shouldn't even ask the question in the first place because it's really, there is no benefit to them to get it taken out of their name. I don't see the benefit. Are there ways to pull out equity from an owner finance deal? Hell yes, absolutely there are. My family has agreed to owner financing my grandparents' house that has been vacant for 3 years, but the home needs renovation, needs $60,000 in work. So Shy Slay, which $60,000 in work probably means $75,000 in work. Tell me why that's a good deal. Tell me why that's a good deal for you. I want to put that in there and let's talk about it. I'd love to go through and talk about that. Wouldn't be the benefit of the seller they would want to buy another house? Joel, have you not been in the Facebook group? Have you not been hearing this? Let me ask you a question, Joel. Does a subject to property staying in the seller's name keep them from going and getting another mortgage on another house tomorrow, or even 2, or even 3? Does it stop them from doing that? The answer is absolutely not. Absolutely not. You are not going through the Facebook group, bro. You are not going through the videos. You are not paying attention to the stories, the examples that we give on every single one of these deals. This house that I currently live in, this is my personal house. This is my personal house. I bought this house subject to. The seller sold this house to me because he was buying a brand new house. The new home community told him he had 6 months to qualify, but because this mortgage was in his name, he could not qualify. I bought this property subject to, and he was able to qualify. Me actually buying this property subject to and keeping the mortgage in his name is what allowed him to qualify for that new mortgage. So that is a complete farce. It is something that is absolutely incorrect. When people say, well, I can't go buy another property because my property is still in my credit. No, it's not. It is in your credit, but it is not keeping you from buying another property. In fact, it will help you, especially if you're in foreclosure. Oh my gosh, people that are in foreclosure, we catch up their arrears and we take over their payments. It will only benefit them for us to keep that mortgage in their name. Why would they ever want to take that mortgage out of their name? It's crazy to me. Guys, don't think traditionally. Do not. This is why it's called creative financing. It does not benefit the seller to take the mortgage out of their name. Okay? Financing at 140, ARV is 325. Absolutely love it. Rents are $1,600 per unit. So here's what I would do. Did she pass away? I'm so sorry if I already asked this. But what I would do is I would have your family member refinance out, maybe get like a home equity line of credit, and then you take over that. Because then that way you don't have to come with that $60,000 in repairs. We just did a subject to the other day where the seller was like $30,000 behind on her mortgage. And she's like, I want cash as well. I'm like, I'm not going to catch up $30,000 on your mortgage and give you cash and repair the property. It's not a deal for me. She's like, well, what would you suggest? And I said, go get a loan modification. They'll basically put that $30,000 you owe on the end of the mortgage plus a fee. Then I don't have to come up with that $30,000, and I can then give you a little bit of cash. So she went and got her mortgage. She got a loan modification down to like 3.2%. I took over the mortgage and we gave her a couple $1,000s in cash, therefore avoiding the $30,000 she was behind on her mortgage. So what I would do for you is I would go ask and see if you can go get a home equity line or refinance that whole deal, then buy it subject to as a fresh loan. Otherwise, you're going to have to come up with that money, or you're going to have to structure and get maybe a private lender or something. Yes, this house right here. Have I ever had a realtor involved? Absolutely. This is something I go over with my students all the time, that real estate agents, you can build an entire creative finance portfolio, an entire creative finance kingdom off of real estate agents alone. It is an absolute amazing strategy. And yes, I buy houses subject to with real estate agents involved a lot. I know if you mentioned reducing the amount of their mortgage on their debt to income ratio by 75%, is there a certain length of time before? Yes, 100% comes off at the 1 year mark, specifically for people with lower incomes where 25% can lead them into being ineligible for another loan. So 12 months. If that's an issue for them, have them go rent a property for 12 months, which usually if they're selling to you on subject to, they're not typically going to buy a house right away. It does happen a lot. So have them go rent a property for a year, go get a 1 year lease, and then they can go get a mortgage, because then the mortgage you took over will wipe out, and 100% of it will come off their DTI, right? Guys, if you're wanting to become a student, you want to be part of the mentorship, we take calls basically once a month to see if you're a good fit. There's a couple guys that like are friends of mine. Let's see. Yeah, that Jonathan, this was really cool. Actually, this one was on my Instagram post. You guys will actually see the seller. Hold on a second. What the heck? Steve Trang's texting me. Steve Trang is the best. Let's see. So I had a seller. This is the actual seller.
Amy, say hi. Did we help you out today?
Thank you so much for helping me. You guys.
And look, it's Ashley's birthday today too.
Oh my god.
So that was a ride along that I took Ashley on, and that seller that I just showed you, that was the seller that I took her. She had a $30,000 arrear. We did a loan modification, and we bought the property subject to, so we avoid all the arrears. So it is a kind of a gangster move. It takes a little bit more time. As long as the foreclosure isn't going to happen right away and you've got a little bit of time, you can get a loan mod and then take it subject to, get a lower interest rate, and then wipe out a lot of the arrears, right? So that's on that, guys. That's on my Instagram. If you're not following the Instagram, you're missing out on a lot of stuff. How does your lead gen process differ from creative finance versus wholesale? It doesn't, because at the end of the day, all we're doing, guys, is we're looking for motivated sellers, right? What does it matter if it's a listing opportunity? What does it matter if it's a buy and hold? What does it matter if it's a wholesale? What does it matter if it's creative finance? I'm always looking for motivated sellers. When somebody sells to you through a listing, if you're a real estate agent and they're listing, there's motivation there for selling their house. If somebody's selling to you on a wholesale, I feel like there's actually way more motivation on a wholesale, because they're selling to you at 60, 50 cents on the dollar, right? At the end of the day, because people are like, oh no, it's 75% minus. Guys, at the end of the day, you're buying people's houses for half of what they're worth. Okay, that's what we're typically buying houses for. So the same process. We're not going after wholesale leads. We're going after motivated sellers. That's it. In all aspects. Now, because our toolbox is completely full, we have so many different strategies that we can buy properties with. It's just easier for me when I'm a wholesaler. I can convert, I don't know, 1 out of 40 leads. When I'm a creative finance guy, I can convert the 1 out of 40 with wholesale, and then I can convert another 4 probably with creative finance. So I quadruple, if not 5x my return on the same lead flow. So we don't specifically go after seller finance deals, creative finance deals. We simply go after motivated sellers, and then we delineate which category they go into, and that's how our acquisition company, our acquisition people are trained. Yeah, it really is. It really is simple, Tanner. It's not complicated. It's nice to show people like how it actually works. But anyway, so I'm gonna answer a couple more questions. Again, guys, what day? I don't know if I saw this. There's so many questions on here. So guys, here's what I'll do. I did this morning. I did a live last week where I was in the car. It was on my way to actually sign this contract, which we did sign the contract. If you go to this link, you guys can not swipe up on it. I do the swipe up on the Instagram all the time, but go to that link. It will go down to the seller conversations. And then I have that one specifically in a folder called Subject to Seller Finance 0%, Meeting 1 and Meeting 2. So happy to help you guys out with all this stuff. Nobody helped me out. Even still, the guy that the people I spent a lot of money trying to learn this from years ago still will not give me solid answers. Like, I'll ask them a question about something really stupid, like, hey, I've got a novation agreement going on, blah, 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 blah. What have you done in the such and such? And they're like, oh, let me get back to you. And then they don't get back to me for a month. And it's just like, okay, I'll go figure it out on my own. So I love giving you guys value. I love coming in here and spending an hour to 2 hours a week with you just on Sunday service. I want to bring more value. I want to be able to get to a point where I can answer every single question with a video link. I want to be able to say, here's the answer. Here's the answer. Here's the answer. So here's what I'm probably going to do is on Wednesday, Andy Campbell, yes, real estate agents get their commission up front. How do you have your logo and the comments popping up on the screen? Because I am smart. The best man by far. Thank you, bro. Appreciate it. Quito, I don't know if that's how you say your name, Quito or Quito or Kaito. I apologize for butchering that, but I appreciate you jumping on the YouTube. You make comments. I do see all of them. I do have people help me answer sometimes when I get overwhelmed, but I do see you guys making comments. I do see the people. Jonathan Cansano, you guys heard me make a lot of comments about him. He asked a lot of really great questions. Guys, I appreciate you guys because what you're doing is you're asking questions that you're dealing with in your existing business, and you're allowing other people to learn from you, and I appreciate it, right? So I think Wednesday, here's what we're going to do. Wednesday night, I have a fact page in my mentorship program, like where it's like breaks everything down, but I feel bad. I can't share that same content with you guys, unfortunately. So I have to kind of create another set of content that's not like double dipping, because then it kind of takes away from what those people get at a really, really high level. So, look at that. Patrick, you don't know how much you've changed my life in this business, and I will, and I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you. So Wednesday night, guys, Wednesday night, what I'm going to do is probably 3 o'clock, Arizona time, 3 o'clock. I'm going to go live for 2 hours. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go live with Bobby Canode, my videographer. And we're going to go through, and I'm going to do start to finish, subject to seller finance and lease options, when to buy them, how to find them, how to negotiate, how to know when a deal's a deal, what they are. And so some of you guys are going to listen to this and be like, oh, I already know half of this stuff. I've got to create it because there's a lot of people say, what's the difference between seller finance and subject to? And I want to get deep. I want to deep dive on Sunday service. I want Sunday service to be a lot more like my mentorship calls, where it's like, I'm not answering questions about what the difference between seller finance and subject to is anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm answering deep dive questions of exactly, okay, you go to the title company, do this exact document to do this at this exact moment. And it's step by step by step. And then my team is helping. Like, it's at a very, very high level. I want to elevate Sunday service just a little bit to get to a point where if somebody asks, top 25 questions, those top 25 questions get answered in a video. And it's like, boom, there you go. And then we can get to the meat and potato and get into like really deep conversations here, because I'll end up getting 2,000 to 3,000 people that watch this one Sunday service by Tuesday. So I want to make sure that these people are getting as much value as humanly possible, even if they can't afford to be in my mentorship program. So Wednesday night, we'll do Wednesday night, 3 o'clock. Appreciate you guys a lot. And please, guys, I'm going to do a live. It's going to go live because I'm way better. I'll announce it, everybody. We'll announce it a couple times, but 3 p.m. Arizona time. I will put on my calendar, make sure we don't miss that. Bring your questions. Like, make it a goal to have a question or two that you have ready. I don't care how stupid it is. In fact, the more newbie type of questions you have, the better, because I want to make this video all about the top 50 questions that are answered in one long video. So if you sat there, you'd be like, oh my gosh, this guy freaking broke down the entire game. I did this the other day. Wednesday is 6 p.m. Florida time, by the way. Oh, real quick before I wrap up. So wholesale hotline Monday night, 5 p.m. Arizona time is 8 p.m. Florida time. So check that out tomorrow. I'll be on there with Brent and Jamil tomorrow. Only us, which is awesome. Gets a little challenging when you have 4 people. But then the week after is Max Maxwell. So that's going to be a really, really big show. Please share, like, all that kind of stuff. And support us on Wholesale Hotline as well. Max Maxwell is coming on Monday of next week. And then we've got Sean Terry, who a lot of people think of as the godfather of wholesalers. Sean Terry is going to be coming on Wholesale Hotline in a couple of weeks as well. So thank you guys for everything. Wednesday night, 3 p.m. Let's do a 2-hour full breakdown on everything. Bring your questions. Get ready for a ton of value we're going to bring to the table. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Till next week on Sunday service.